I think some of the experiences that we've been talking about may have influenced me in that regard. I mean, as a kid, as a junior high school kid, as a high school kid growing up in Bayonne, baby boomer, I was fed, as everybody in my generation is, this narrative of good and evil. And as particularly as it applied to Americans, all of our entertainment was like, there were good guys and there were bad guys. In Westerns, there was the sheriff, the guy with the white hat, and the bad guys wore the black hats. And of course, you could read Tolkien, and I yield to no one in my admiration for Tolkien. He was a genius. He was one of the great writers of the 20th century. I think his books will last forever. Which is not to say I don't disagree with certain ways he handled good and evil. I mean, the externalization of evil, the fact that the bad guys all are kind of ugly and they wear black, and you can tell the bad guys from the good guys. The Vietnam War was a powerful formative experience, not just for me, but I think for my entire generation. I remember how shocked I was when I did do research the origins of the Vietnam War, what was happening over there, and I realized the layers of complexity about it. It was not the narrative that we had been fed about, we are the good guys coming to rescue other good guys who are being attacked by evil, commie bad guys. It was far more complex with that. There was all these issues of the colonialism and the roles played by the French and Ho Chi Minh and his belief in the doctrine of Woodrow Wilson, but then the way they turned against him when he said, well, all these principles in Versailles, can you apply them to us too? And oh no, that was just for Europe and for white people. It doesn't apply to you people. You can stay under the French. They get to rule you, and the complexity, and then I also saw it in the anti-war movement. I saw these people who I think were unthinking. They just swung from one side to another. They believed that all of the Americans were the good guys and yada yada, and then they become convinced that they're part of the anti-war movement, and then they're talking about the soldiers as being baby killers and monsters and committing atrocities, and that's wrong too. I mean, the soldiers were people faced a difficult decision and made it, and the point that came out of this is everything is complex. Everything is complex. There are layers. There are individuals involved. The minute you get a movement or a group or an ethnic group or a religion that has like more than two people, you get some variety, and you're in danger if you generalize about them. And so people are gray. Human beings are not black or white. We're gray. We have good in us, we have evil in us, we have the capacity for great heroism, we have the capacity for great selfishness and cowardice and committing horrible acts. And sometimes at the same time, the same people can do something heroic on Tuesday and something horrible on Wednesday. And indeed, if you study war and the things that happened, you see this all through history. I mean, even in, look at Shakespeare, Henry V, the great hero king of England, Henry V, winner of the Battle of Agincourt, probably the most heroic king in British history, and yet there's a scene which Shakespeare does include in Henry V where he kills all his prisoners, unarmed prisoners who have surrendered to him. So, heroes commit atrocities, people commit atrocities, can be capable of later heroism. It's the human condition, and I wanted to reflect all of that in my work.
One of the things I think is interesting, particularly in the current political climate, is that we seem to be drifting back to that narrative, except that both sides think they're all the white hats and the other sides think they're the black hats. And I don't think it's that simple. I think anytime a work encourages people to actually think it through, it's good. I was on a panel one time where they, about the nature of good and evil, and somebody said, well, certainly Bush and Cheney, pure evil. And I'm pretty famously anti-Bush and anti-Cheney, but I had to find myself in this awkward position of defending Dick Cheney, which, by the way, you don't want to have to do, but it's not that simple. And I think that the fact that your narratives don't allow it to be that simple are a really good thing.
No, I mean, you're seeing this narrative re-enter the media right now with President Obama visiting Hiroshima. And suddenly we're refighting World War II, and people were, you know, screaming like crazy people. Why is he visiting Hiroshima? How dare he question, is this an act of treason or something like that? I mean, Japan has been our ally for my entire lifetime, and yet, can't we even express, I mean, that's a very complex question. Should Truman have dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima? Even more complex, should he have dropped the second one on Nagasaki? You know, you can question that, you can argue that. You can say it was the most evil act of the century. You can say it was absolutely necessary. There are many different ways to look at it, but I think after you know, it's 1945. How many years has it been here? It's 55, like 70 years here. After 70 years, it just seems to me common decent humanity to say we're sorry for the hundreds of thousands of people who died here, and you know, lay a wreath. I mean, at a certain point, you have to let these battles from 75 years ago go, and recognize that. And oddly enough, the Vietnamese seem to realize this, because when I was in Vietnam, I mean, I sensed, I mean, obviously I didn't meet everybody in Vietnam. There may be people in there who were still very pissed off, but the ones I met seemed to like quite a lot of Americans quite a bit. And I said to some of them, don't you hate Americans for the war? Ah, you guys, you were just here for like 20 years. You know, it's the Chinese we hate. They came, they were here for 1,000 years. Couldn't get rid of those guys, you know. So, and you know, it may be because they like our Kentucky Fried Chicken and Starbucks, but you know, they're busy building a future, and let's not obsess about the past, because you know, every nation has done horrible things, and every nation, well, not every nation, but many nations have done good things too, and we have to try to build for a better future, and that means some forgiveness of the crimes that have been committed in the past, especially when all the people who actually committed the crimes are dead.
So let's go back to